Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever noticed how, when we talk about global development, we get completely obsessed with the future? We're all about new technologies, emerging markets, and looking forward. But what if the secret to actually moving forward is looking backward? That's the exact compelling argument made by Oluyomi Ola David in her framework, History Matters for Balanced Development. Today, we're going to unpack her brilliant philosophy on why sustainable development is literally impossible without a firm, unshakable grounding in our historical roots. Let's jump right in with a fundamental question she poses, because it sets the perfect stage for our deep dive today. She asks, how can we move with adapted knowledge in the global economy if we are bereft of perspectives from our history? Now, I want you to zero in on that phrase, adapted knowledge. In our hyper-connected world, we're constantly absorbing global trends and standards. But for any of that knowledge to actually work for a specific community, it has to be adapted to fit their unique reality. Her argument, you simply can't adapt global knowledge successfully if you're completely cut off or bereft of your own history. Your history is the exact filter that makes global knowledge locally useful.
Section 1. Meet the author and her vision.
Let's establish exactly who is guiding us on this journey. This is the emblem of Oluyomi Ola David, a thinker deeply invested in global development and transformation. When you dive into her policy briefs and technical insights, you realize pretty quickly that she's not just staring at cold, hard data. She's looking at the real people behind those numbers, and she's trying to generate solutions that genuinely uplift human beings.
To really understand her work, we have to look at her background. First off, she proudly identifies as a Nigerian who loves people, and that cultural grounding heavily shapes her perspective. Secondly, she's laser-focused on global transformation and policy. But here's what makes her approach incredibly distinct. She's deeply driven by faith. She explicitly notes her belief that her Father God owns and rules the universe, which brings a highly moral dimension to her policy work. And finally, she is all about inclusive solutions. She doesn't want development that leaves anyone behind. She's pushing for socioeconomic restructuring that honors absolutely everyone's humanity.
Section 2. Hindsight versus foresight.
She makes a fascinating point here about how we balance progress. She argues that development can only be truly inclusive if we balance our future-focused foresight with the immense benefit of hindsight. Think of it like driving a car. Foresight is looking out the windshield. You absolutely need it to see where you're going and to plan your route. But hindsight? That's your rearview mirror. If you never check it, if you have no idea what's right behind you or where you just came from, you're going to crash the second you try to change lanes. In the rush to modernize, so many nations put all their energy into that windshield view, completely ignoring the massive value of the rearview mirror.
And that brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from her. Understanding history is critical to effectively navigate local and global development. Notice the word she uses, navigate. Navigation implies you're on a journey with a map, right? You need to know your coordinates. She's telling us that history is the compass. Whether we're talking about a small local community or massive global economic shifts, understanding history isn't just some casual academic exercise. It's a highly practical, vital tool. Without it, you aren't navigating at all. You're just drifting aimlessly on the currents of globalization.
Section 3. The cost of living acceptably.
She highlights a truly devastating sequence happening right now, particularly focusing on several African countries and nationals. It happens in 3 tragic steps. First, there's a loss of an inner sense of history. That inner connection to the past is just severed. And that inevitably leads to step 2, a loss of core identity. When you don't know your history, you kind of forget who you are. Once that identity fractures, we hit step 3, the catastrophic loss of valuable indigenous culture. The traditions, the knowledge systems, the unique ways of solving problems, they all just fade away. It's a massive domino effect of cultural erasure.
And here is the truly heartbreaking irony of it all. This loss of self doesn't usually happen because of some sudden, dramatic catastrophe. As she acutely points out, it's often just a desperate attempt to live acceptably. Think about how heavy that phrase is. To live acceptably within a standardized, often Western-leaning global system, nations and individuals feel intensely pressured to shed their own history. They're basically trading their unique identity just to get a ticket to participate in the global economy. She's challenging us to see that the price of this admission is just way too high and ultimately totally unsustainable.
Section 4. History as a tool for recovery.
But thankfully, she doesn't just leave us with the problem. She gives us a clear pathway out. As this vibrant image from her work reminds us, with the words literally leaping off the pages of a book, history genuinely matters when it comes to social and economic restructuring. It's not a dusty relic sitting on a library shelf. It is an active, living blueprint. When a community faces economic hardship, the reflex is usually to look outward for some shiny new solution. But her advice? Open the book of your own past. The tools for true, lasting recovery are already right there.
To make this highly practical, she breaks these historical lessons down into 3 specific types: written, visual, and oral histories, and she places equal value on all 3. Written history is the obvious one: archives, books, documents. Visual history covers art, architecture, and artifacts that tell a story without words. But it's that third one, oral history, that is absolutely crucial, especially in the African context she frequently references. The stories passed down through generations, the proverbs, the songs, they contain immense economic wisdom and survival strategies that you will completely miss if you only look at written records.
By actively integrating lessons from all 3 forms of history, she believes we can fuel a much more holistic and effective socio-economic recovery on a global scale. This is where her passion for generating real solutions shines. If an economic policy ignores the visual or oral history of the people it's supposed to help, it's going to fail. It just won't be inclusive. But if we adapt global knowledge using that rich historical context, we can actually build economies that don't force people to sacrifice who they are just to survive. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought inspired directly by her incredible insights. What parts of your own identity, your own history, or your own culture might you be sacrificing right now just to fit into today's standardized global economy? Are you trying to live acceptably at the cost of your true self? Oluyomi Ola David reminds us that genuine progress never requires us to erase where we came from. In fact, it demands that we remember. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning, keep learning, and keep looking at your own history as the ultimate key to your future.